Thank you for joining us for another episode here on the Dunedin Film Festival Podcast. I'm here with Mandy Mills, actress, screenwriter, and producer. So excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and welcome to the 6th Annual Dunedin International Film Festival. How has it been going so far?
It's great. I love this festival so much. I'm local, so I love that it's right in my backyard. But I think it's organized so well, and I think the quality of films here is so high that every block you go to there's always something that's surprising, but there's always something you can always count on something really good to see at Dunedin, because they're more about the quality versus quantity. So you're always getting something good out of it.
That's so great. I'm so glad that we have you coming here every year and supporting what we're doing here, especially as a local performer here in the city. So tell me more about all things Mandy Mills and your history in performing.
Yeah, I was an athlete in high school, so I guess I came a little bit late to the game. I went to college in New York, so I bounced around between New York and LA, back to New York, and then I think the pandemic sort of shook up everyone's life, obviously, but for me, it brought me down to Florida because my family is here. My mom lives here in St. Pete as well, and I just, it was a time in the world where it sort of brought everyone together, and for me, it brought me closer to family, and it was a little bit of I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a bummer at first because it's sort of like you work so hard to be in LA and New York, and it felt like you're just kind of giving up by sort of retreating. But I found the local film community here to be so accepting and so supportive, and everyone in Florida who's in the filmmaking community is really about helping each other and bringing film here and just wanting to get together and make art, as opposed to, I think people get into it for the wrong reasons sometimes, but I found that the passion in Florida is so strong, and the film community sort of accepted me, and it felt very welcoming, and I've grown to love it here.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that you were able to have that experience, and from something that felt uncertain and felt like you maybe could have gotten lost in the mix of it, that you were able to thrive.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for somebody that, kind of is going through that, whether it's COVID or just life as it happens, that they, they're going one way and they're super successful in New York or LA, and then life happens, what advice do you have for someone going through that?
I think one of the good things that came out of the pandemic, if we're allowed to say that.
Yes.
I think one of the good things that came out of it, whereas you really can live anywhere and be in the film industry now. So I think if you are unhappy with where you're living, I think the pandemic really did teach us that happiness is so important, and you have to be enjoying your life, no matter what your profession is. You have to enjoy who you're living it with and where you're living. And I think that amazing things came out of it is you really can live anywhere now and be involved in the arts. And also, if you're just starting out, you just have to do it. Find something that you're passionate about, and the money will come, the resources will come. If you are passionate, nowadays, the iPhone is so advanced. I saw a high school film that a young filmmaker made, and it was done on an iPhone, and it's one of the most amazing films I've ever seen.
Wow.
And she's, obviously her career is doing so well now, but at the time they were high schoolers. They didn't have the resources and access to these huge, big cameras and very professional crew. They were a bunch of friends that got together and said, we have this really passionate idea, and we love art, and we want to make something. So I think, some people, money and resources hold so many people back, but I think if you have something that you really want to do, you just have to do it. There are so many ways to do that nowadays.
That is really great advice. And just a great mindset on it is to go with the evolution, to go with the flow and how that changes. So one thing that you said that I think is important is go with the flow and go with the changes. One thing that somebody has said on the show that I've spoken to this week was talking about how self-taping was not a thing really before, COVID. And so how would you say that the self-taping process, because you mentioned the iPhone, the self-taping process, how has that changed your access to acting?
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons you can live outside of New York and LA now, because everything is on self-tapings, like commercials especially, that I find they say, we want to see you in person. It's slowly coming back, I think, but I think that now the self-tape is the thing of the future. And for me, self-tape really transformed, like elevated my career because I was so nervous to go into the room all the time, and I'm just a naturally awkward person. So I don't, walk into a room and I'm so excited to be doing this audition. I go in and I'm locked in, and then you're sitting in a room full of 25 people who look exactly like you, and you try to put your headphones in and tune everyone out, but there's all the mind games. And now you can have a self-tape set up, and, if you are blessed enough to have an entire room in your house that's dedicated to a self-tape room, then that's amazing. But if you don't, you really need a clear or what's the word? Plain, just a plain wall and an iPhone in some kind of light. And it's the value of that is I think you can do it 100 times if you want.
Yes.
You can turn in something that you can say, okay, I'm really proud of that, as opposed to getting in your car and going home and being like, oh my, hated that audition. You can do it again. And that's the value of it. And I don't even have listen, my mom does her best. But my mom is the worst actress in the world. And she'll say that. This is nothing behind her back.
Yes.
She'll say that. I love you, Mom. I love you. But she knows she's the worst actress. But I don't even have a reader come over anymore. I just have them on Zoom, and you can have anyone that you want. You can have any kind of reader. You can have a coach. You can have a friend. And I always have them on Zoom, and I set up my computer. And I actually think I'm a huge advocate for self-tapes. I love them. And I know there is value to going in the room because you don't have the opportunity to be redirected, or for the director who's in the room to say, you know what, that wasn't exactly the way. Can you do it this way? So you don't have that of the casting director or the director saying, actually, can you do it another way? But you can always turn in something you're proud of, and you're always putting out good work. And I think, everyone says that auditioning is our job. That's what you have to do every day. And if you book, that's amazing. But every day, if you're turning out good work, that's the point of self-tapes now. So I'm a huge advocate for self-tapes. And I don't know if that's the contrary opinion, but I love them. I think they're amazing. And I hope that again, this is not the norm opinion, but I actually hope that we can do self-tapes forever, and at least have the opportunity if everything goes back to in person.
Especially for that initial, audition opportunity.
Right.
Some of the people we spoke to, they're living here on the Tampa side, and maybe it is a Florida audition, but then that's in Miami, and that's a 4 to 6 hour drive.
Right.
So we're talking a 12-hour round trip commute for an initial reading. So I think I would agree with you, and as most people have shared, it's definitely been a wave of the future, and it allows art to be more accessible to a variety of talents. And so I think that it's a great thing to offer, and one it is by having it taped, you can ask the opinion of coaches and mentors. It's not just you. You can get feedback from other people, which is something you can't get in those closed door auditions either.
Right.
Because not every director is stopping and redirecting you, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's like the golden standard there, having that opportunity to reread.
Right.
But you get other people's opinions.
Well, then if you turn in a good self-tape, then they say, okay, so this person knows what they're doing, but this isn't what we were looking for. So let's have them back for a callback, and then we can sort of say what we want,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the opportunity both to the casting side and the talent side.
Right. Yeah.
So so I know that that's a big part of the acting and what you do as an actress. So let's talk a little bit more into the screenwriting and producing.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they go into this industry thinking, okay, I have to be the actress or the producer or the screenwriter.
Right.
So tell me more about being this triple threat.
Yeah, thank you. That was very nice. I got into writing and producing, I'm an ultra competitive person, so writing a feature sort of started out as a challenge to myself of, can I do this? And I did. And then what I sort of took away from that was, obviously when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of credits, so you don't have a lot of reason to be called in for something. So I noticed the parts I didn't like what I was going in for. Is that, how many times can you go in for, I don't know, just derogatory, stereotypical roles that females get called in for. And I was over it. And so I started writing short films because I thought, okay, a short is much easier to make than a feature. And of course, both come with their challenges. But in my mind, just from the monetary perspective, like, okay, I could get friends together. I could figure out how to make a short film. And so I started writing as a way to play roles that I wanted to play. And then producing sort of just came as the default as well, because it's like if you are an actress and you have a great script, unless someone puts everything together,
Exactly.
it's still not going to get made.
Yes.
So the producing also sort of came out of a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I just found that I like it. You know, I love to be the person. I don't necessarily like producing from the monetary perspective, but I love bringing people that I love that are very creative and are very good at what they do together, because there's only so many things. You know, I consider myself a good actor and a good writer, but I cannot tell you what a gaffer does, you know, and as many things as I try to learn as many things as I can on set, but also from that perspective, it's like I have a friend who's brilliant gaffer, and I want to bring him in always, because if you can bring together all the brilliant people, and that's what I love to do, is I love to bring all of the creatives together, because then we have this sort of collaborative goal and everyone's functioning at a very high ability. So then the project is made better. So I think that, producing sort of came out of a necessity, but yeah, I found that I love to do it.
Well, I love hearing that, and just it's kind of that if you, and I don't love this quote most times, but sometimes if you want it done, you have to do it yourself. And so, and typically I don't like that quote, because I think we should have a community where we serve each other. But that is a different soapbox for a different podcast. For this one,
We'll come back to it.
We'll circle back to that one. But in this realm, having that collaborative experience and bringing the people together. I know. I'm like, where did that go? I know. Yeah, do it yourself. The do it yourself part. That was good. That was fine. We'll go to the next part. Okay. So then, and one of the best things about being in a community like Dunedin or St. Pete, where we have incredible film festivals, is we do it ourselves in this realm of producing, but you don't have to do it alone, right? Doing it yourself doesn't mean you're doing it alone. So when you have the gaffer who can come and elevate and really show up in a place that you're lacking, when you have a co-producer or someone who's been there before who can help guide and mentor you, yes, you're taking the brunt of it as the actress, screenwriter, and producer, but you don't have to do it alone.
Right.
And I think that's what's beautiful, especially with this community we have here in Dunedin and St. Pete, to do that.
And there's so much talent in this area.
Yes.
And I mean, one of the amazing things about Florida is you don't really have to fight or create production value. You know, we have so many. I mean, Dunedin is such a storybook town that you don't have to look far for a bar or a cafe or a sidewalk. And then we have, we have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world that you're not really fighting to create these sort of magical landscapes that I think maybe other places do sometimes. And so from that, I think listen, filmmaking is never easy, but I think we sort of do have a little tiny step up from maybe somewhere else.
Absolutely. When our real world is picturesque sets, you can't beat that.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to be able to touch on some of the projects that you have here at the film festival this year. You have, I think, 3 here this year.
3 short films.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, so I was part of a 48-hour film challenge, and we did a film called Conspirators, it's a mockumentary. So our team drew mockumentary for genre, and Evan was such an amazing director on that. Mark, the producer, who sort of is like the bring together of everyone. And then it stars Mary Rachel Quinn, who plays Abigail Hoffbacker, and it's just so much fun because I normally do a lot of drama. And it was so much fun just to step out of that. And it was the first sort of mockumentary. I've done comedy before, but it was the first mockumentary.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, I thought it was so fun because when you see, like, The Office is a mockumentary.
Yes.
And it's kind of like you just look at the camera and the audience is like, oh, So that was an amazing experience. And I was a supporting role in that. I was the first AD on a short film called Flag Act, directed by Susanna Darwin and starring Kate Young. And that was it was also just such a magical little film that came together. about a woman who's sort of protesting the fact that you can't hang any flag that you want. But it's told in a very sweet way, and Kate was just so brilliant in that. You have to see it if you haven't, because it's a great story. And then my film, I guess they were all kind of, well, not really my film, because I wasn't really creative on those, but the film that I wrote and produced and acted in was also part of a film challenge, but it was a 7-day film challenge instead of a 48-hour. It's directed by Maggie Peralta, and Fabiana Lowe is the DP, along with Brandon Fate, and then Jimena Lopez also produced that with us. And we sort of took this concept of it's two sisters. It's very grounded in realism, in terms of like the relationships and the color and the way that the story is told. But then there's this one sort of fantastical, like sci-fi removed element, which says on your 30th birthday, you have to go to the center and get a box that tells you how much time you have left to live. Wow. And so my character, who plays the younger sister, the night of her birthday, or the morning after her 30th birthday, gets her box, and she has 7 hours left to live. So it's like sort of what do you do within those 7 hours? And then it has a very interesting sort of, well, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you the ending. You have to see it. But it ends in a very twisty kind of way. All three of those projects are all locals, all Floridian, residents. Very different film experiences, but all, like I said, all very collaborative and all very accepting. And I love the two that we have. I see in Florida, and not that I didn't see this in any other states, but I see so many women behind the camera in Florida in all kinds of positions. Women who are doing sound, women who are DPing, and women who are directing. And I think directing has come a long way. In terms of, I have worked with female directors in LA and New York, but there are so many women who are behind the camera here that I find it's something I haven't seen before. And I love that. Diversion, we tried to have, I think we had 95% all female crew, which was one of our goals.
I love it.
Yeah, because I think we've come far, but I do think we have a lot further to go.
What do you think are some of the barriers there still are for women trying to get ahead behind the camera?
I mean, I think it just goes back to when film started. It's an old boys club. And so to break down those walls, unless you are that image of what that looked like when film first started, and it's not just women, it's anyone who's not that stereotypical image of a person who should be running a film, there are barriers to break down. So I think that just comes from that mentality and that mindset. And I think a lot of the mindset now is check a box, like, oh, okay, we have someone of this diverse characteristic on our set. We have someone who's LGBTQ, but it's not really about checking a box. You can't, just because you have one person who checks that box, why can't we have an all-female crew? Why can't we have everyone who's filling that goal? And I don't think it needs to be about checking a box. I think it needs to be who's the best person for the job and who interprets that job in the way that serves the story. And it's not always a man. And it's not always a white person. And that's where I think we've come so far in storytelling, is because someone who doesn't look like me is going to tell such a different story, and I'm not going to be able to tell that story. And so I think that what I've found in Florida is it's open to, and I think other states are progressing as well. But for me here, filmmaking is a lot more open to trying people out and giving people a chance and saying, maybe this person's seeing something in a different way that I am. And instead of having an ego and being defensive about that, it's like, let me learn from this person and see what they can teach me. And I think even as a filmmaker here, what I've learned has even grown from that as well, because it's important. I think it's important for all stories to be told.
Absolutely. It's the adage, don't be judgmental, be curious.
Yeah, and not having an ego. I think if someone brings an ego to set, that's the worst thing that you can have.
Yeah, because you can't fight against an ego. You can't reason with ego. So it's this challenge that is unsolvable when you're dealing with that.
And if we're all here to have the collaborative goal of telling the story, I think whoever's telling it the best and the most accurately is the right person.
Absolutely. And going back to what you were saying about that checking the box, and that's where I think sometimes this conversation of inclusion gets so twisted, because I hear that all the time It's just about checking a box. And I hear it on both sides of the argument. And what really is being asked about inclusion is not make decisions based on those things. Mm-hmm. So by this proverbial box that we're checking to be a specific color, shape, size, all that kind of stuff, that's really goes far away from what we're truly advocating for. Mm-hmm. We're just advocating that that's a non-factor when it comes to equal opportunity. And the box checking is an uncomfortable thing that's happening now that I don't think is as effective either. So my goal is, and I know we'll see this in our lifetime because we've already seen so much growth, but on the next 10 years, I want to see more where there's not box checking and it's just simply, do you have the talent, the skills, and the will and the drive to do this position?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to hear about the 3 projects that you brought. You can definitely tell that you are passionate about it, whether you are in screenwriting or acting space. And I think that's what comes through on the screen and what helps you be so successful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of my favorite questions I've been loving asking is, so the term meet cute, in rom-coms, your meet cute is when you meet your love interest and you know that that's the spark that's alive, right?
Yeah.
So I love talking about that when it comes to the film industry. So I know that you started, doing commercials, that was Mary Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't do commercials. Good thing it's when I'm on a date. So, going to colleges. So, I know for you feel the proverbial started a little bit late. You're not the 4-year-old who was on film. You did college, you did sports in high school and in college, and then you got really into the passion of performing. So what was that meet cute for you when it came to filmmaking, where you knew that filmmaking was going to be something that you would do for the rest of your life?
Well, I think it was always something that I wanted to do, but, I grew up in the Midwest, so it's kind of like you go to school and you do everything you can in high school to get into college, and then you go to college, and then you get married, and that's it.
And more boxes to check.
Yeah, I didn't really want to do that. I always wanted to act, but I wasn't sure how to do it in, I'm from Colorado, so I wasn't sure how to do it there, and, Denver was like 2-3 hours away where there was a little bit, but it wasn't, I wasn't going to be driving up there every weekend. I played volleyball year round, so I didn't have time. And my freshman year of college, I kind of just I took a theater class because I needed an elective credit. And so I took aerobics, and then I took theater 1, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I transferred to New York the next year, and the city was just electric. And I think New York is a city that either can crush your spirit or you can thrive on that energy. And I just feel like it gave me so much. And I just wanted to learn everything I could about it, be good at it. So I think it was always, when I was 9 years old, I asked my mom if I could watch Titanic. That's what I wanted for my brain. It was still, you crying as the ship is sinking, and then you have to switch out the VHS tape for the rest of the ship to sink. But that's what I wanted for my birthday. So I think I always grew up loving film, but I didn't know how to do it. And my parents were and I'm grateful for this now, but my parents were very much, they didn't want me to do it as a child. They said, we want you to go to school and graduate from high school, and then you can do whatever you want. And at the time, I was like, oh, it's the worst. But I'm grateful that they instilled that and pushed that, because I did. I had a very normal high school experience. And looking back, I don't think I was ready. I think New York kind of hit me in the face when I got there and slapped me around a little bit, and that's how you grow. So I think it was something I was always passionate about, but it took me a minute.
I love that. I love the forced happenstance of needing the elective credit and being able to enjoy theater in that way, and to have that spark in you is amazing. I also grew up in Colorado, so grew up in Inglewood. Where are you from?
Okay, Colorado Springs.
Okay, yes. So and there's not a lot of filming in Denver. That's a
no.
Yeah, okay. There's some. Nothing like Florida.
Not like Florida, not like LA and New York.
Oh yeah,
Atlanta or any of the Carolinas. Nothing like that.
I mean, we've got a very hopping theater area, obviously, in Denver.
Right,
all over
the performing arts.
Yes, performing arts.
Yeah, the theater game is strong.
Yes. Oh yes, but filming is great. It's so expensive. That's the thing. Is we need the tax.
And I think it's grown. There might be a much bigger film scene there now. I was growing up in the 90s.
Yes.
There wasn't a lot.
Yeah. And very different too with COVID, very similar to other areas, is people had to learn how to make film in their area.
Right.
So I will say definitely, as I go back to Denver, you do see more, which is another thing incredible about this industry, is that in all these cities, people can work and they can live into their craft and they don't have to all live in New York.
Yeah, I
Well,
love that.
thank you so much for sharing that spark. I love the Colorado connection. And I'm glad that you came here through COVID and that you're finding your way and paving your path and really helping and show that women can wear all the hats and do the roles and being a role model. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being on the Dunedin Film Festival Podcast.